Welcome to an all-new build-out live stream. You can join the stream every Wednesday at noon Eastern Daylight Time, exclusively here on LinkedIn. The stream will be starting in just 1 minute. In the meantime, let me take this opportunity to talk about the graphic design platform that I use to create the social media graphics, overlays, and studio graphics for the build-out series. Canva is both an online platform for your desktop and laptop, and also offers an app for smartphones and tablets. With the Canva graphic design platform, you can easily create social media, presentations, posters, documents, and other visual and video content. While there is a free version, Canva is best when using the affordable Canva Pro subscription and Canva Enterprise. So if you want to build out your social media and visual content, you need to use Canva. I'll make it easy for you to sign up. Just use a referral link provided on this stream's event post or in the video description with this stream's recorded posted to my YouTube channel. Okay, now let's get this build out live stream started. Today my guest is Sam Navarro, Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for IPC Industries. Sam and I will have a conversation on how to develop a strategic plan for business development. Okay, let's get this build out conversation started. Hey everyone, welcome to an all-new build-out live stream. I'm real excited to have a good friend of mine as my guest today, Sam Navarro. He's a Vice President of Business Development and Marketing with IPC Industries. Sam, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
It's great to have you today, and we're going to be covering a really great topic related to business development. And, you know, earlier in the pre-stream conversation and earlier this week, we had a discussion about the definition of business development. So to kick this off, before we kick this off, why don't we have you cover your professional background so people can understand where you come from? And also, could you talk a little bit about IPC Industries?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I think it's pretty cool. So I started off as a delivery driver in a paint store when I was 18 and kind of worked my way up through the paint store into a third key role and into assistant manager. And then I had the opportunity to go and actually get into the sales world when I was pretty young. I think I was 22 or 23. And I kind of found my niche. And one of the things that I did was I was able to speak Spanish and English. So I was getting along really well with a lot of the contractors out there. One day, a guy who I still talk to, his name's Gary Vorick, asked me if I was interested in taking NACE. And I didn't know what NACE was. And so long story short is he put me in the course and I ended up taking NACE 1, 2, and 3, successfully passing my peer review 12 years ago or so. After that, we started selling performance coatings. I've worked for some really great manufacturers. I had the opportunity to go work for one of the nation's largest soft crafts contractors out of Houston. Was there about 3 years and it was fantastic. I mean, the experience that I got there was stuff that I still use today. And I had another opportunity to go and work for a real large pipe coatings customer or contractor rather. And, you know, so I got to experience that. And here recently, I had a little bit of time over at Gartner Coatings, which was a great company. I got to see the specialty coatings world, which was really interesting and stuff that I'd never seen before. And then I came on board maybe about a month ago here at IPC. So IPC is a soft crafts contractor, really heavily focused on tank linings. And if you know me, I'm a tank guy. So you know, our big deal is we don't want to be the biggest soft crafts contractor. We just want to be the best. And so it's been fun to get to know this company and start figuring out, you know, what the strategy is going to be, building the marketing plan and the business development plan. I don't know that a lot of people truly understand what goes into building a successful plan for business development or marketing. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's a living, breathing plan that some days you have to modify and some things don't work and some things do work, but you just got to keep rolling with it.
Excellent. I totally agree with you. So for everyone watching, this is going to be today's agenda. We're going to talk about business development strategies and focus on the business development strategic plan, a short video review on the business development guide, which is an online resource for people. And then Sam and I are going to talk about some business development tactics as well. Earlier, obviously in the kickoff of the stream here, I talked about the definition of business development. There is a lot of, in my opinion, and you might have the same opinion too, there's a lot of confusion between what is truly business development and what is sales. And I'm going to read the clinical definition of business development. Clinical, the practice of identifying, attracting, acquiring, new business to increase your company's revenue and growth goals. How you achieve these goals, establishing a roadmap, is the concept of business development strategy. So that's the clinical definition. Sam, what's your practical definition?
Most importantly is getting out there and trying to figure out what your customers' issues are, what their problems are, and then trying to bring a solution to them, right? So this day and age, you have plenty of salesmen out there who are very transactional. And once you get one sale, you go on to the next. Where in business development, it's all about really building that relationship to where they can trust you of, hey, I've got these projects coming up. This is something that we've struggled with in the past. And you got to really lean on your company's strengths. You know, you can't be everybody's everything. So you really just need to determine what you're good at and try to provide those solutions. And if you can't find a solution for them, you need to be honest with yourself and maybe even try to help another contractor get in the door. These days the contractors are so against each other that there is room for multiple contractors. There is room to help somebody out on another job if you can't perform the work. Because the worst thing you can do is try to take on projects that you're not qualified for and failing.
Definitely. I love what you're talking about with the collaboration. And I've seen very successful collaborations happen between contractors in the field, in the shop, and also other different, different industries where they have a collaboration, especially in the general construction type of industry as well. So I wanted to focus on, five, in my opinion, I kind of have 5 key business development strategies. And the first, obviously, you mentioned, is understanding your competitive landscape. You need to really understand not only yourself internally and focus like a laser on what are your key core competencies, but if you don't really truly understand and do an assessment on the competitiveness of the landscape, you could be setting yourself up for failure.
Sure.
What are some of the recommendations you would have? Obviously, there's SWOT analysis. Have you done any type of competitive analysis based on the experience that you've had in the industry?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm a big believer in SWOT. I try to implement them everywhere. They're used by some of the biggest companies in the world. So thinking that it wouldn't work for a small company is, small-minded, right? Like these things do work. There's a reason that there are these programs in place. Sometimes, you focus on competitors that are, sure, they're competitors. They perform somewhat similar, services as you, but they don't compete in your region or they don't compete in your market. So why worry about them, right? It's a matter of if a guy's based in Louisiana and he's trying to come into Houston, sure, it can happen. Sure, he can open an office and sure, he can hire a labor force, but all that time and effort that you're worrying about them coming into you, you're losing all the traction that you can build on your own business plan to determine who is your active competition.
No, that's a good point. And the other thing too, in looking at a SWOT, both internally and externally, is also looking at the future state. A good example, I've worked for a company in the past where, the infrastructure, let's say the capital equipment that the company had was very, very old and it was prone to breakdowns. And, when the line would suffer where we'd have to wait for a programmer to come in to program the machine, or we'd have to wait for parts to come in to be able to repair, to get back up in operation. So you really have to not only understand internally and externally, but understand future state. Are you prepared as an operation, as a business, as an organization to grow into the future? And then looking at those external threats, because like you said, somebody coming in from one part of the Gulf Coast to, let's say, Houston market, it's going to be a lot of an uphill battle for them because they have to get established in that area where you probably are going to be very well established, and you're going to have that advantage of kind of blocking or kind of mitigating their impact on your business and operation. The other thing I wanted to also focus on is KPIs. We have these key performance indicators, and some of them can be real basic KPIs, but also with business development, you can have KPIs that really kind of help set yourself. Again, with business development, the best way I always kind of say is my job is to go out into I go out into the field and I'm shaking the bushes and or shaking the trees and kicking the bushes, and I'm looking for opportunities. It's up for me to bring back those opportunities, and then working with the internal team, determine exactly, is there an opportunity here? And then what's the requirements for the infrastructure? What's the plan? What's going to be needed to have success when it comes to revenue, market penetration, that type of things. But if you don't have effective KPIs, you're going to be in a whole world of trouble. You, Sam, I know you set up KPIs because of some of the operations that you work. Related to business development, what are some of the key KPIs that you would recommend?
So there's a couple things. So one, I cannot push the KPIs enough, right? It's the only way that you actually know what someone is doing is by trying to implement, these basic reports and these basic things that you can actually determine where you're seeing progress and where you're not. And, it can be a pain, but at the end of the day, if you're marking down what you're doing, it's not that difficult. For me, KPIs are certain things. So on the marketing side of things, are we growing our footprint, via social media networks? Are we getting more clicks on our website? Going through the analytics, seeing if we're starting to get more quotes based on certain content and where we're driving that. On the business development side, especially with companies these days, it's getting active agreements, your MSAs, trying to determine, if you are bringing in the right work, because just because you can bring in work doesn't mean that it's good work for the company you're working for. Good point.
We want to look at sustainable, profitable work versus busy work that could take away from other potential revenue generating areas. And the other thing too to look at is you really need to establish strong relationships with your customers and with your clients. And to your point, you were talking about service level agreements, maintenance level agreements, and other type of contractual relationships with your customers and your clients, because again, your job is to help them grow their business or help them in their situation. Let's say if they need a widget or they need a process done, such as industrial painting or some other type of aspect. What's the best, I guess the thing I'd ask here is going to be, what's the top thing to focus on customer relationship?
I always focus on what are they struggling with.
Okay.
Right? So it's easy to go and be the shiniest one, at the table, but you really want to start looking at where they're struggling. Are they falling back? Are they not getting the life cycle out of their tank lining that they need? Mm-hmm. Are they dealing with CUI issues? Every facility here is dealing with CUI, right? So go in and talk about those pain points and go in and surprise them, because you can talk about CUF, you can talk about CUI, you can talk tank linings. That is our, if you're looking at the general landscape of facilities in general, those 3 points, if you know the ins and out of those 3 things, you can have a conversation with almost any maintenance manager.
Definitely. And for the viewers, the conversation we're having, Sam's background, my background, we're in the corrosion and coatings industry. A lot of the topics or concepts that we're talking about today can be applied through pretty much across all different industries. The other thing too, related to, the customer relationship, you're not going to approach it, me too for less. You're going to want to go in and show them the quality, the support, and then also to sell the value. And I think with business development, that's that level of professionalism, is really going in there and not saying we're going to be your lowest bidder, me too for less, or, I can do it a lot cheaper than your competitor, than the other guy. It's really going in there and selling the value. And it could be, that over delivering when it comes to service and support and everything like that. In another area too, we want to talk about related to sales, business development planning is, leverage a sales plan to identify areas of growth. So we want to make sure that with business development, we're identifying certain areas to focus on. We've qualified it. We've brought it back to the company or organization to kind of validate it internally. But then we also want to make sure that we have sales plans, marketing plans, development plans internally to make sure that everyone's moving in a forward direction from the business development initiatives. What are some of the internal planning mechanisms that you recommend?
So there's a couple things. So, when a company wants to grow their footprint or their business, they have to have two things. They have to have a lot of time and they have to have a lot of money. And they go hand in hand together because it's going to take time to bust into a completely new side of the business, if you will. From the sales and business development side of it, if you're chasing, let's just say, tanks, you have to really start to determine how many tanks might pop up on, from a facility side. Are you chasing tank builders? What are they looking at? What are they bidding? How much is coming down the line? If you see people, doing X amount of turnarounds on certain units, and really be able to collect that data. And then you have to package it together where you can send it to whoever, in the executive level and say, this is what I see coming in the next quarter. This is what I see coming in the next quarter. But then you have to stay on top of it and be able to say, hey, things, we've hit a new, the freeze came, so this is going to be delayed, or there's a supply chain shortage in steel, or there's a craftsman shortage. Everything is a living, breathing document and plan, and you have to be able to relay that back to the upper level management saying, hey, I still have this coming. Mm-hmm. So we just have to kind of keep pushing through. Here's what it's going to cost us, and here's what it's going to bring us in return.
Yeah. And Doug Sinatier asked a great question. Is there one personality type that fits best for business development? For me, what I say is it's going to be someone who's going to be an outgoing person. They're fearless. They're not afraid to talk to anyone about anything. What do you say, Sam?
So, I'll say this. I'll say that being able to talk to people doesn't bring value. You have to know what you're selling. So you can be the fun guy and go golf or go eat or go out and have cocktails and all that. But at the end of the day, our landscape, our industry is changing, and you have to know what you're doing. You have to know, in the corrosion industry, you have to know certain things. And the old school methods of, I'm just going to be their friend and they're going to give me their work, that's not going to work much longer. You see that happening more and more.
Definitely. A lot of changes are going on right now. And another strategy is related to, obviously, sponsoring industry events, organizational events, conferences, for example, like the AMP conference and other conferences out there. My friend, I think Heidi Brooks, she's been taking advantage of a lot of different conferences and events to help promote not only her product solutions, but also too, the firm that she works for. So getting involved, I think, also too related to business development, being a technical speaker, providing content, and also the interaction helps out as well. Sam, I know you've participated in a lot of different conferences, and you provide a lot of different events as well. Any recommendations on things that people should focus on right now?
Absolutely. So these days you can network yourself to death. There's a networking event every single day of the week and 2 on the weekends, right? Yeah. And that's just because you attend doesn't necessarily mean that you're networking. If you're just networking with a bunch of folks that don't bring anything back to you, then you're just kind of wasting your time and your company's money. As far as conferences go, when I go to a conference, I have a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, all planned out. I have meetings in between. If I'm going to play golf, I have tee times reserved with customers, and I have my entire day planned out, every single day that I'm there. And then if I'm just sitting around at a booth, waiting for somebody to come to me, that's a waste of time.
Yeah, you're so correct, and you see it all the time. I mean, unfortunately, with the pandemic, I really haven't been at a physical conference in a while. But you see it all the time where you walk by a booth and people are sitting there, they're on their phone, they're fidgeting, doing other things. They're really not engaging and interacting with the attendees. And you're paying top dollar to exhibit or sponsor an event. You need to take advantage of that. So a lot of great examples out there of people who really do it right. So I encourage anybody who's new in business development, even sales professionals that are new, to look for some of the wise old guys and women and kind of match and mirror what they do, because it's all about the networking and it's about the contact and communication. So let's move to our next topic, which is going to be on how to develop a business development strategic plan. Now, obviously, when we talk about a business development strategic plan, think of it as a roadmap. It's really going to lay out exactly how a company or organization, the whole company, is going to assist in executing on the plan. You obviously you have experience in business development plans. How difficult is it to get all the other players internally to march in the same beat when it comes to a business development strategic plan?
I think it can be very difficult at certain times in certain companies, and I think it can be relatively easy on others. The deal is when a new business development plan is being implemented, you're going to have pushback because growth and comfort don't exist, right? So they go back and forth because this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years or 20 years, or this is the way I sell. And you have to be able to take that and turn it into something positive. You have to be able to say, okay, I understand that we're really strong in this field, and so we're going to try to grow our strengths there. But if the company wants to evolve into something differently, there has to be a plan of, hey, I'm bringing this to the table. What do you guys think that we can turn this into?
Yeah, and in my past lives, business lives, my experience related to developing that strategic plan, there's two different ways, at least my experience, two different ways that it is approached. You hire a third party to come in and help develop that plan with the internal, obviously, stakeholders. The other thing is to do it yourself. Now, for those who want to do it themselves, let's say those watching right now, if you don't have a business development strategic plan or any type of strategic plan, there are templates that are available out there. And a lot of them are from the organizations and associations that work in and around professional development, sales, business, and things like that. If you Google it, you'll be able to find a lot of really good resources for that. And it could really help lay out with a checklist on there exactly what areas you need to cover, what you need to have in your strategic plan. And then the other thing is recommendations on how to get internal buy-in, because, getting that executive, and I would say you need to get that executive buy-in right at the beginning. Sam, you work with a lot of great business owners, and you have always had a great connection with whoever is running the company or who owns the company. What do you say about getting that buy-in right away when it comes to the executive level? How important is it?
It's very important. It might be one of the most important things. I'll go back to a couple of things. So we're in the day of technology, and you have all the information in the world at your fingertips, but you have to have the want to learn how to do it. So, I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I look at other companies. I watch documentaries on other companies, and I see where they were successful and where they failed. And I try to change that and manipulate it to what I'm doing, right? Mm-hmm. So I couldn't agree more on that. As far as executive, buy-in, it's super important that they understand what you're trying to do. Some of the mistakes that I've made in the past is I haven't made them known as much as I should have, right? So I think that in certain personalities, you kind of feel like your work is showing through that your quality is coming through your work, right? Yeah. Some owners, they need to be reminded of what you're doing for them. And I'm just as guilty as a lot of people are, where I've made that mistake. I didn't bring that to the light as much as I should have. And it's one of the things that I've learned. And, it's something that I feel like every experience that I've had, is just making me better. Every time I fail, I learn something.
That's a good point. You learn a lot when you have to pick yourself back up or sometimes have to reset and start over again. There's value in that. Failure Absolutely. Is actually a learning process. Another recommendation when it comes to developing a business development strategic plan, and this is where it kind of ties in the executives, because a lot of times, maybe I'm biased when I say this. I think executives sometimes just focus on that executive statement, the elevator pitch of the plan. So, obviously investing some time and a lot of effort into developing that's very, very critical as well, to have it so that, again, you're trying to get the buy-in. Another recommendation is what they call, obviously, setting SMART, S-M-A-R-T, SMART goals. And SMART goals are things that are going to, again, tie into the business development plan, but also kind of filter throughout the whole organization or company as to specific things that need to be done to achieve that plan and that goal. What do you have you used SMART goals before, Sam?
I have not. I've always been one to say, small things give you big results, right? So going and starting small. Unfortunately, sometimes people, they go in with all these great ambitions, and it's the little bitty things that help a company. So in business development, we talked about this before we went live. I look at business development like you're fishing, right? So when you go fishing, you don't drop your line at the edge of the boat or at the pier. You cast it out as far as you possibly can, and you start reeling it back in. And then once you get a bite, you know that that's where you need to be. Well, business development's kind of the same thing, right? Where you're casting out a lot of lines and you're bringing them back slowly to find out where it's good for the company. And as soon as you do that, guess what? You need to start casting more lines. And that's just kind of the way that I've always done it is figure out where you're at and where you want to go. And then you have to start working your way backwards.
And other steps are going to be, we talked earlier about conducting a SWOT, and then determining your KPIs. Now, setting budgets. Budgets can be battles, and I've been involved in many battles when it comes to business development and budgeting. Again, it comes back to having that SWOT and having certain KPIs, and then a fully understanding of exactly, as a business development strategic plan, where's this going to? What's the target revenues? Because you're going to fight a battle. I'm sure you fought some budget battles yourself, Sam.
2020, the pandemic was really new for everyone, right? And and it stopped a lot of progress for a lot of folks, including myself. And it's one of those things that the industry's changing, and we're starting to see it more and more, where you had these massive projects and these massive craft contractors traveling from town to town, kind of eating up all these smaller companies. That's going to come to an end, because one thing that you're starting to see is there are more safety incidents, there's more quality incidents, there's more issues, and that's because these companies have gotten so big that they can't monitor what they were known for.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Warren asked a really great question. What time frames do you work to when making a plan, quarterly, annually, a 5-year plan? I would say, my opinion, there's nothing wrong with doing a quarterly, an annual, and a 5-year plan, because again, you want to look at obviously within a shortened period of time for the business year, and then obviously what's the long term. And that plan is going to be, it's not going to be the exact same thing. It's going to be 3 different types of plans, because again, more shorter period of time or longer period of time, and it's going to have to be focused much differently. Sam, with you, have you had experience with just doing annual plans or 5-year plans, or a combination?
So every time that I've been in this position, I've always made a 30-day plan, a 60-day plan, and a 90-day plan. And that's where I start, right? So I can't go into a company and 2 weeks in roll out a marketing plan that's going to be successful for the company, because I don't know anything that the company does at 2 weeks, right? Yeah. And so I would say that the first one would be a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And then I don't mind doing a 1, 3, 5-year plan. I do like quarterly, because that's a way that you can start measuring your success, right? And that's where you can start dialing it back. Me personally, I hold a monthly report to myself of what customers I'm visiting, where I'm having success, where I'm not. And where I'm not having success, I actually try to figure out, was it worth continuing going down this path or not? And that's something that we have to be really upfront and honest with each other. Is you've got guys that are chasing the same customer for years with this, because the customer is dangling a carrot, and at the end of the day, you're never going to get that work. So you have to be, adult enough to admit, I'm only going to pick up the scraps, but I'm spending all this time and effort trying to get it. And it's all that time could have been used going to chase a customer that really wanted to do business with you.
That's a great point. And Warren does say, what percentage of emphasis at any time. Obviously, I think when it comes to those 30, 60, 90-day plans, you're going to focus a lot of your effort on that, because again, it's about cash flow. It's about having revenues coming in. The long-term plan it's going to change no matter what you do, because you're going to have continuous improvement. Your KPIs,
absolutely,
they're going to, and then obviously the results at the end of the quarter, the end of the year are going to determine exactly what adjustments you need to be making into the next year and 3, 4, 5 years down the road as well. And the other thing is, who today, can you tell me today exactly, IPC, or for me, for example, what's AMP going to look like in 5 years?
Yep.
I don't know. But it's great to have a vision and a target to say, okay, this is where we'd like to take an organization or take a company, and that's how you drive yourself to that 5-year view of who you really are. So,
yeah. So the way that I've always done it is, I use the first 30 days to really start to try to dig deep and peel back the onion and find out where the company's at.
mm-hmm.
And then the next 30 days, I'm starting to put together my plan and starting to determine what our strengths and weaknesses are. The next 30 days, I'm starting to really put a plan together of how we're going to roll this thing out. And then when you go in, it's showtime, right? It's time to go.
Definitely. Now, we've gone through, obviously we set up, some goals, we have the executive statement done, we've kind of gone through and we've done the budgeting and everything like that. Identifying target customers, you've kind of probably already pre-done that and kind of getting into the plan, and then choosing an outreach strategy. This where it goes into the marketing aspect. Obviously there's ways through content marketing. You've got the soft type of social media that can be done. We talked about conferences and trade events and things like that. We're coming out of, hopefully, knock on wood, we're coming out of obviously pandemic time. Things are changing, they're evolving, they're a little different. When it comes to the marketing and the communication aspect, what are some of the things you see changing or people should maybe focus on when it comes to business development?
So I think that one of the biggest things is you hear it often when things go back to normal. Well, things are never going to go back to normal. Like anyone who thinks that this is ever going to go away or that things are going to be the way that they were in 2019, I'm sorry, it's not happening. So you have to start innovating and you have to start seeing what successful companies are doing. I think that this build out live stream is fantastic. Being able to talk with someone who's in another state, thousands of miles away, and have these meetings. Owners are starting to get more and more strict on what meetings they can go to, what conferences their employees can go to. And what you're seeing is you're going to see a reduction in expenses that companies don't want to get back. And so you have to start thinking virtually, and you have to start thinking about better communications rather than sending out a 15-page portfolio on what your company can do. You need to start just sending, what's that customer doing? That customer, if he's a tank guy, he doesn't really care about certain things. So don't send him, don't bombard him with that. And once you start getting the ball rolling, then you can say, hey, do you know that we can do this also? Because he works with someone in the plant or, in the refinery that might be interested in learning more about that. But it all goes back to knowing who you're calling on and then knowing your craft. And my craft happens to be BD.
Definitely. I remember the days of, carrying the line cards with you and, okay, here's what our capabilities are on the equipment in our operation. So it's interesting. Sam, I had put together a video, kind of a video review, and it's going to be on the Business Development Guide. It's an online resource for people. I put the link in the stream's comments. Also, when this goes up there's a recording on my YouTube channel, I'll make sure I put that link into the video comments as well, and then the repost for it. So if you could hold on 1 minute and
Sure.
play this, and we'll get back up and finish our last topic, which is going to be on business development tactics.
Sure.
I hope that you're finding value in today's stream with Sam on the topic of how to develop a strategic plan for business development. In researching today's stream topic, I came across an online resource from the Business Development School. It was titled The Business Development Guide. This online guide is a great information source to help in the understanding of business development concepts and tools that can be used in the field. Some of the business development topic resources covered in the guide included most common business development strategies, how to create a business development plan, how to build your business development team, the roles and responsibilities of a business development manager, and how to measure business development success. The bdschool.com online guide is very informative, and I'll post a link to the guide in the stream's comments, as well as a video description when this stream's recording goes up onto my YouTube channel. Okay, now back to Sam to finish today's stream conversation on the topic of strategic plans for business development. So, in looking at this last topic, business development tactics, and keeping with my tradition, I came up with 5 recommendations. And the first one for a business development representative or a professional business development professional is the innovate the way you network. Now, we're networking. You are a professional when it comes to LinkedIn and networking on LinkedIn and utilizing the platform to its full advantage. Obviously, there's trade groups. We talked a little bit about, we were talking about Sarge Summers and about Oilfield Connections International. There are these trade industry groups. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, they're out there. And then also, obviously, the events that are happening. It could be trade events, it could be industry events, conferences and things like that. What are your recommendation if you were talking to someone who's new in the business development role when it comes to how should they network?
So the one that I'm most passionate about is I volunteer a lot. I find myself volunteering at food banks. I find myself volunteering, after events, and you get to find and meet, people that might not necessarily be part of your industry, but when you live in Houston, there's a real good chance that somebody's connected with someone in a refinery somewhere, right? Or in a fab shop or chemical plant. So I've spent a lot of time volunteering. I enjoy it, mentoring, going through the courses, or the networking events and determining which ones are bringing value to you and which ones aren't. Younger folks, I would suggest join your local chambers, young professionals group. I think that there's always an opportunity to meet some folks there, and that can help you start kind of breaking out of your shell. But again, it all goes back to you have to want to go and meet the right people in order to get it going. So attending, the AMP conference is fantastic. I've always enjoyed it, but I'm not afraid to go and meet somebody new. I'm not afraid to have a conversation with someone I've never met before. And I think that it takes a lot of practice to get it down. I've given a couple speeches in my life, in front of a couple hundred people, and that terrifies a lot of people. Well, I didn't start there. I started off, speaking in front of a couple of folks, and then it grew little by little. So just being able to relay your message and don't be awkward, be yourself, and you don't have to be, this big, this big personality to sell something. You just really need to know who you're selling and what you're selling.
Yeah, very good. Another recommendation I had is to approach in a consultative manner. Sure. You want to focus on a consultative selling. There's a lot of training that's available out there. My background, I did over 4 years of Sandler selling systems training, and it really benefited me both as a personality to be able to communicate to people, not being afraid to talk about things, but also understanding that the old days, let's say the old school ways of features and benefits and price, you have to really approach things on a consultative basis. Do you have anything additional you'd want to say related to consultative selling?
It's getting to know what you actually are selling, right? Mm-hmm. So these days you see it all over LinkedIn. It's the new age of selfies and come do this, and that's great and on. It might get you a bunch of likes or something, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to discuss technically what you're selling, and that's a big one. I did Dale Carnegie, and I've done other sales courses, and they can teach you everything in the world, but if you don't know what you're selling, you bring zero value to your customer. And again, times are changing, and you have to change with them, or you're going to be left behind.
Very good, very good. And Warren Wilson asked, are there any business development certifications, accreditations that someone starting out in BD could take to upscale themselves? There are a lot of online resources available. There's such things such as the Sandler Selling System. Dale Carnegie was mentioned earlier by Sam. There's a lot of resources that are available. For me, the best way I learned, and you always remember, you had that mentor. And I remember working in Bob McClure, working in a different industry, and he was that seasoned professional ready for retirement. And he really, really taught me so much about business development, and it totally changed. And then when I took other additional training, it helped fortify some of the things that he was putting into daily practice. It made me understand better and appreciate what he was showing me, what he was doing. And I'm now hearing this from other training providers and things like that. Sam, do you know of any additional resources that Warren should look into?
So I definitely think that the mentoring is the best way to go about it. The funny part is people think that mentor has to be somebody older than you. And it's just not true, right? Like I have several mentors of mine that are younger than me, and they just happen to be really, fantastic, dynamic people that I've partnered with, and that I think, I think one of the things that we've made the mistake at is you only want to hang out with people who are like-minded. Well, that doesn't get you anywhere, right? You have to have a different perspective. You have to be able to discuss topics with different people with different personalities, and all of that is building blocks for making you a really valuable solution to someone.
Definitely. So the recommendation, the boomers need to get with the zoomers.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out too, on another recommendation is, looking at using product demos, service business cases, anything related to ROI, because, if you're out there and you're approaching, to your point, as a consultative selling professional, you understand your technology, your service, or whatever you're providing to your customers and prospects. But you also want to be able to show them the value. And a lot of that comes into doing case studies, ROI, or product demos. Yeah. I know you have a lot of, I've seen stuff that you've done in the past, anything additional that you would want to add related to that topic area.
So I think things are going to get more difficult before they ease up, given the current state of the Delta variant or whatnot. So it's going to be hard to get people to come to your shop. So you have to figure out ways to take your shop to them. On the field services side, it's really all about performance and going out. And the thing that separates you from others is, head count and speed, how quick you can do a job with how many guys. And if you're able to prove that you can do it with less guys in a less amount of time, then you really start to make a wave.
Definitely. And in the last 2 years, and we'll go into the next recommendation, in the last, let's say 2 years, and I believe moving into the future here, obviously, marketing is going to be such a critical element when it comes to success of business development and whatever your organization or your company is selling to generate revenue. Where do you see the evolution of marketing going to?
So it's funny because I think that there's good marketing and I think there's really bad marketing. Just because you put something on LinkedIn does not make it good. Just because you put something on Facebook or on Instagram or Twitter does not mean that it's good and that it's going to attract people. You have to have the right message and you have to know how to word it. People get degrees in marketing for a reason. It's not easily done well. I've been lucky enough to attend some really great courses. And, in my experiences, I've been able to sit at the table with a lot of really good marketing firms, to understand the perspective, but I never stop learning. You can always take short courses on social media. There's plenty of online resources for that. But you have to want to learn how to do it. And again, I go back to just because you slap something on LinkedIn doesn't make you, any better or worse. It has to be good content and you have to know how to word it. You can't have 600, hashtags per post because it's not going to get you anywhere. It doesn't help any.
That's a very great recommendations, and you're definitely true. And there are ways, obviously, for example, when I post stuff on LinkedIn, I'm looking at the metrics, I'm looking at the views, I'm looking at the comments, I'm looking at the likes and shares and everything like that. And, there's a learning curve that even for example, myself, you got to analyze that information and see exactly what works and what doesn't work and what resonates and what doesn't resonate to be able to move forward. And my last recommendation conversation kind of ties in what we're just talking about is, utilizing, webinars, virtual sessions, and then in some cases where you can, obviously you're going to have potential road shows and things like that.
Sure.
I've seen a lot of effective use by business development professionals when it comes to doing, anything from a Zoom webinar. Here, obviously, we're live streaming right now. There's so many resources that are available virtually to really be able to help continue the mission of a business development professional. Anything that you would want to add to that related to things that are available out there to kind of get that message out?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as, being able to do lunch and learns or meetings with groups of people, webinars, white papers, any of that. But it all ties back into what we started off with, was you actually have to know what you're selling. You have to know what your strengths are and know the ins and outs of it before you can be successful at it. Because anybody can go and get one sale. It's the repeated sale that makes the difference, right? And you have to get paid for it. So you have to know that customer at every single level of their organization.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And for the viewers for next week, a really great guest and a conversation. Going to have Rolf Snobeck from Techna America. We're talking about grow your team, grow your business. So we're going to have a great conversation, and I think it kind of works a lot into relation to today's stream with Sam as well. So I'm really looking forward to next Wednesday at noon Eastern Daylight Time here on LinkedIn. Sam, what a great conversation we had. You and I have been friends for a long number of years here. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd want to leave with the viewers?
I think it's really easy these days, and I'll leave it with this. I think it's easy these days to get knocked down and stay down and get a negative outlook on the industry or the economy or what's going on. And the only thing that I have to say is, you just got to roll with it, and you got to be positive, and you got to stay positive. You got to understand that everyone that you deal with on a daily basis is going through something different than you are. So you have to be incredibly understanding and just try to be a better human. I think that empathy is something that we're all lacking sometimes. So I just try to be positive and have fun, and it's showtime.
That's great advice, Sam. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, likewise. See you soon. Thank you.
Hey, have a great day.
Yep.